Okay, next up is explicit versus implicit and imperative versus declarative. So different types of scenarios, or different ways to think about scenarios. So the motivation slide that we try to start off everything with is, are all the requirements really come directly from user stories? All right, we said scenarios are from 3 to 8 steps. How do we keep them closer to 3 rather than more like 8, so that it doesn't take as long to write them, it doesn't take as long to understand them? So in terms of do they all come from the user stories, that gets referred to as explicit versus implicit scenarios. So the explicit ones are the things that come directly from the user, from the customer, and they are basically acceptance tests. So like last time we added search TMDB. So that is our list the movies, list all the movies. So that's examples of things that the customer wants to see on the page. So things that the customer maybe doesn't care about would be like in that example, well, gee, when you list them, do you list them in the order that they were entered, or in alphabetical order, or chronological order by when the movie came out? Maybe the customer doesn't really care, so you're going to have to figure out what to do. So that's an example of an implicit story. So just keep that in mind. There's some things that come directly from the 3x5 cards, and some things you're going to have to figure out. You don't want to bug the customer asking questions all the time. When we've been writing these things out, we've been writing them in what's called an imperative way, and that is here's a given state, and here's a sequence of steps to get us to the next state, so we're ready to do the test that we want to see if it is doing the acceptance test we want to do. So if a lot of your user stories are imperative, though, a lot of them will have the very same steps. So so once again, Pavlovian bell goes off. We see a lot of the same things. There must be some Rails way to try and avoid this because we want to not repeat ourselves. So basically, the way to try and do this is what's called declarative, okay? Declarative approaches, which is, that is, we're going to try and say the state we want it to be, right? And so we're going to do it, if you think about declarative programming languages versus imperative programming languages, that's the inspirations of these names. So this should take a lot fewer steps. So let me try and make this concrete. So I'm going to talk about this listing the movies alphabetically, and I'm going to show you first how you do it imperatively in a lot of steps, and then showing you how to do it declaratively. So how are we going to say it has to be in alphabetical order? Well, what we're going to do is go through these steps, and here is the imperative approach. Given I'm on the Rotten Potatoes homepage, and then I follow add a new movie, and then I fill in the title Zorro, and press Save Changes, then I should be on the Rotten Potatoes homepage, and add a new movie, and add the title Apocalypse Now, and I give it a rating, and I save changes. Then I should be in the Rotten Potatoes homepage, and I should see Apocalypse Now before Zorro. So that was a lot of steps to write, to go through, to change it from the state I was originally into the state I wanted to be, so I could do this one test here. That's kind of the behavior I'm after, that it's in alphabetical order. You remember BDD, the B in BDD is about behavior, so it seems like it's a little weird that we're trying to describe behavior and we do it imperatively, kind of like you're implementing it. So the idea here is to think of it as making a domain language, not a domain-specific language, but a domain language. So you try and think of it in the terms of your applications or the terms of the feature that you want to do in the concepts. This is just an informal language. And so you're trying to write the declarative steps in this language, and your step definitions are to define those. Okay, so how a declarative version of the scenario for keeping things in alphabetical might look like. So now it's, the feature is the same. So view the list after adding a movie. So given I have added Zorro with a rating, all right, that's just describing the state that I want it to be. And given I've added Apocalypse Now with a rating, then I should see Apocalypse Now before Zorro. So that's a lot better, right? That's 3 steps versus 15 steps. 1 step of those 3 steps is behavior, only 2 to set up. Well, that's a lot better. So again, so it's the declarative scenarios are focused on behavior being tested rather than the steps that needed to set up the test. So how are we going to do this? The way we're going to do this is with some more step definition. So the next slide gives you an example. So I've added this. So here's a step definition that lets me write things marked declaratively. Basically, you're taking the single step and turning it into a bunch of smaller steps. So remember we said like a step is like a method call, and a step definition is like a method definition. So you can think of that, right? Just like we've done it. You do this hierarchically to reduce the amount of code. Similarly, you can do that with steps and step definitions. In this example on the left, that's handling the given statement. Given I'm on this given I want to add this movie, and it takes these steps, this more imperative steps inside. So what the idea here is that you may get started writing imperatively, but that you should start mining them and to try and make kind of, step definitions or method definitions out of them, so you can book that kind of hierarchically, so you don't have to write as much code. So you'll start off imperatively and hopefully migrate to declaratively. All right, with that, we're ready to see how this works. Let me read this. So what's true about these types of scenarios, implicit and explicit, and declarative versus imperative? So explicit requirements are usually defined with imperative scenarios, and implicit requirements are usually defined with declarative scenarios. Explicit scenarios usually capture integration tests. Declarative scenarios aim to capture implementation as well as behavior. All of these are false. Okay?